how do you call it out?
I mean,
Is it in the base or is
because
it
what they're
not?
doing
And
is,
who decides
if
that?
in fact we're all understanding it, it's artificial. Because it's obligatory, so if you put it on the central unfunded, it has to come back into the base.
Right.
Yep.
So why would you bother to do that? You leave it in the base, but you,
Right.
again, but you asterisk it, that's,
Well, what we've done, though, is create the base, the other, and then the essential unfunded. So this is being called out, but in the middle of it, and then we have to decide where does it go.
there's only one place for it.
The number, this $20,000 isn't in our base, because that was the instructions we were given.
But it is contractual, that's why.
Correct.
Yeah,
It's
so
not
they would
like-
call
So
that
did you
essential
tell me that-
unfunded. That's their definition, because they used that as an example.
Just hope
in their
that we're
meeting.
all communicating, that's all.
It's
I'm not
essential,
saying-
we have to do it, contractually required, but it's new, therefore they want
Yeah,
it.
I'm not saying you
Put
don't
that label on it. That's
you
why
don't
we need-
defer to them, but.
We need definitional clarity. Maybe we won't get it completely worked out this year, but it's a
Oh, no, we
good
will,
exercise.
we need to, because every
Well,
year
we
I
have
feel
to
like we have the same
understand.
conversation.
But next year, clearer definitions at this stage in our process will help us break
Yeah.
it.
There's no issue, there's no debate about the transparency.
Oh, right.
It's how,
How we
It's a
account
It's
for
the
it.
mechanics of
It's the
how we
mechanics.
interact
Yep.
from this stage
Yep.
to the FinCom in the most efficient and effective way.
Yep.
And that's what we're hoping for, and we're just kind of stuck in the middle, trying to just figure out, okay, this is what we hear from them, this is what we're
yeah, and
delivering to you.
if they certainly have the ability to change the process. So if that's what they did and we're all understanding it, then we're
Yeah.
caught up, and that's fine, then at least I know we could talk about how best to label the
Correct.
explanatory sheets or something like that,
Correct.
or, you know.
Or what's the next step? At what point can we take this recycling and hauling charge and put it into base budget? I don't wanna be presumptuous and I don't wanna step on
So I would
anyone's
see that as
toes.
being in the next category where it's the town administrator board of selectmen.
And then we would make the recommendation.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happens when, there was some benefit to us doing it the same way every year. So one of, because this is almost recycling, no pun
Yes.
intended, to when we first started doing it this way, and you had 20 departments, and you got about 15 different approaches.
Yeah,
So when you have everybody's gonna do it the same, that's the point. If
Right.
the FinComs change the definition of the same, that's fine. But I hope I'm being helpful. I'm
Oh,
not
no,
trying
you
to-
are.
I'm seeing apples and oranges and pears, and at some point they all have to be apples. Although I got some really great oranges and from Hamilton.
Okay, we're making fruit salad now, okay. Everything else, recycling, I mean, no issues with that, these are all the same, these are all level funded.
Yeah, most everything is
Yeah.
level funded.
Everything else is really
The
Animal
inspector,
control
animal
officer.
control
That's-
officer. So, Carol LaRock has, over the years, has stayed level funded this year due to increases in where she takes animals to the vet, and for boarding, she's asking, they've increased their rates and she's asking for an increase in that line. Of 900 and something.
Do we get any reimbursements on those?
Nope.
And we take them there because,
They're stranded in the town of Topsfield in the boundaries, and if they get a call in the middle of the night or whatever, in the middle of the day, she can't figure out who they own, or if
So we-
somebody drops the dog and it's manged, or it's got, I don't know, she could tell you.
so whatever reason, if it's considered an abandoned dog not owned by somebody, you can't trace the ownership.
You have to
Take
do
on the
something.
cost. Yeah, you
She can't
can't.
take it
It's
home,
us.
and she
Yeah.
can't take them home, so she has to have a place to put them.
Okay, that makes.
Unless you wanna be a puppy foster.
That's very short.
No, just asking, I mean,
I
different
know, it's a
places
good
do it
question, I
differently.
wondered the same thing when I first.
So she provided a snapshot of what Muddy Creek, which is the veterinarian she uses. She's supposed to be getting me some billing from the kennel that she boards the animals at, although I don't have those.
The kennel we board at is Newburyport still?
No, no, she does them at the place on Raleigh that we kicked out.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, yeah.
They moved to Raleigh on
We
Route 1.
they still
had
owe
a
us money,
25-year agreement with Newburyport.
No, we don't.
At one point, we had a
So
25,
they went out of the business of
They went
doing
out?
it.
Thank you.
So,
That's-
yeah,
that was the piece I'd like
I
to
think they
know.
went out, and so she
okay, got
does it
it.
for Newbury, and we were gonna go to Ipswich, and Ipswich
So
isn't doing it.
if I could just understand, there's two indications there. One is stray, and the other is the name of the dog,
So
the animal.
sometimes.
I assume
yeah.
when there's a name of the animal, the bills are passed on to the owner of the animal when the animal is returned
When
to
the
the
animal
owner.
is picked up.
When the animal's
Well,
picked
to
up.
get the animal out, you gotta pay to get the animal
Well,
out.
but who's paying? This shows bills here,
Yep,
which I assume we paid because they're here, and then we got reimbursed. I just want to understand the process, what's going on?
yeah.
If they don't come and pick them up, it's on us. Simple as that, really.
But if it's a stray, we have to pay.
I mean, this is euthanasia.
So some of the dogs, I'm not gonna try to interpret a Muddy
okay.
Creek bill. 'cause I
For
don't have
some
dogs.
reason, she feels that $900 some odd is the amount
This
that
one,
is
that's what she
appropriate.
feels, yeah.
And just for our own purposes though, that would be a considerable increase of where we were because it was running the amount.
But she hasn't increased her budget ever, so on behalf
So
of Carol.
in previous years, bills have been paid for out of the Board of Health inappropriately. So I'd like all the costs to be contained
Oh.
in the one area.
Oh.
And that's why we're asking that, it usually it's right year end. Last year there was an animal that there wasn't any reimbursement for. It was a $500 bill. There was a reason that they could pay it out of the Board of Health, but it's just not consistent with how you should be paying bills. So to keep the cost contained, we'd like her account to be funded appropriately. And it's one that is, it's hard to really predict in terms of how many animals. If you have 3 animals, you put $1,500.
Mhm. So just for those who are listening here, the appropriation for the current year was $571, and we're asking an increase of an additional $929. But in some ways, we should see a decrease in the health budget then.
It was paid out of a grant that was in the health department. It was a bill that came in after the fiscal year had closed, so it was the only way to pay the bill. It was,
Some years there's
So
no
it
much
must have been
sense
for
at all.
some years because, what? Just watch where we are. I mean, people will look at these budgets, they know these things. I need to be able to explain them, I think we all need to be able to explain them. But if we go back 2 years ago, it was $400, it was the year before that, it was $125.
and the year
So-
before that,
so
she had the tickets paid out of the town clerk's office. So the idea is to put all the costs that are related to
I
animal
love it, I
control
have no problem with
within
that.
the department.
It's great. The only thing we need to think about is, if there were tickets in the town clerk's office, did we correct that budget to account for the fact we put it here? I mean, it's a great way to be able to say, 900, 100 comes from the town clerk, 200 comes from the Board of Health, and yeah, we still have 600 more, or something like that. If we had it, it would be helpful. But you already explained this grant thing, that's, that was nice to have that out of the Board of Health grant. Not have those anymore, okay, for the dogs, cats or whatever they are, okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
I got a question on the stormwater management. How is that different than whatever else? And why do we have a stormwater consultant at $10,000 for trees? Is that an ongoing annual expense that does not change? There's nothing listed for 15 through 17, so it's hard to tell.
The stipend
This is
is,
new.
the stipend is on all the time. The,
Who gets it?
Dave Bond.
Dave Bond.
David Bond.
Dave Bond. And
that's been on for 2 or 3 years.
when you say Dave gets it personally, or Dave gets it for the department and the department?
Personally, it's a stipend.
He
Our
is our stormwater coordinator, so if the planning board
Okay.
needs him to go out and do any work, it is under the jurisdiction, or it is under the direction
Guidance
of,
of, yeah.
guidance
Yeah.
of, direction of the planning board.
What was
Gotcha,
it,
okay.
FY18, the
Under-
first year that we did that?
Yes.
Gotcha. And stormwater consultant, is that an outside person who comes in and?
I
So
believe-
that was last year, it was actually the Board of Selectmen put it on as an article to have that funded. Martha was taking the lead with that. I don't know who
I know there's a statewide
It was a change in the state
mandate
regs.
to, you've got to manage your stormwater.
Yeah,
So is this basically for this year and next year and whenever until we get our official plan together?
so I
We're gonna
know
have a
that's-
stormwater
That was
consultant.
that was my impression,
It
that we
doesn't seem like
needed to
it'd
make
go on
sure that
forever
we
once
had.
we have a plan, because they're making everybody,
Ideally, your
conform.
stormwater, you would adapt your fees to pay for that expense.
right,
But we're not really there yet. And so this is sort of an interim step until we figure out what are we gonna do with stormwater fees, how do we adjust our fee structure? And whether or not, there was also a question as to whether or not Dave Bond was willing to add another hat to his coat rack. And we're fortunate that he's willing to do it in-house. It would certainly cost us a lot more money. I remember when Martha was researching this a few years ago, it would have cost substantially more if we have to go outside and contract with someone to come in each time.
oh, I understand that.
Oh, and I know, I'm not suggesting that there's a question about that, but what I wanted to make clear is that we see this as sort of an interim step until we get a better understanding of what the requirements will be and how we implement them and the demands for this particular level
So-
of expertise.
So that consultant is doing things like going out, making sure retention ponds are right size and do the proper filtering of the stormwater.
If Dave needs expertise in something, he
John,
doesn't know.
Because that used to be a
I think
conservation.
I think we need better input on this.
I can certainly find
think
that.
I
it's a
prefer
different-
more
It's
information.
a different
That's fine.
purpose, it's a
And
different purpose.
is this gonna be an ongoing thing that started and goes on forever, sort of like the Pie Brook engineering
Right,
thing?
right.
Or is this something where we're kind of holding a place, covering our butts until we get a plan together, and that plan will then reflect more accurate
Yeah.
ongoing costs? So I would appreciate a little explanation on that for all the
I
reasons
think we're
Dick
just,
mentions.
this is one of those things that sort of falls to us because it doesn't really have
Go
another
anyplace
home.
else, yeah.
Yep.
But yes, we'll get you more
Good.
information.
The other question I had was, and I'm not against it for obvious reasons, but the soldiers, sailor graves and so on, that seems to be kind of a legacy account. Is this for flags, maintenance? How does it differ from anything else in parks and cemeteries?
That would be a question that I would have to, it would probably be for the veterans.
It's a
Veteran
specific
Services
marking,
Officer.
it's specific marking of the graves for the veterans, you see the symbols that they put on a
The
stick.
little brass things on the.
Yeah,
sticks
those
and so
kinds of
forth,
things,
okay.
it's for that
I-
marking, and you wanna keep it out of you want it for a very specific purpose, you don't want people to, if it's in a general budget.
Oh, no, I
they
don't
can
have
cut
a
out
problem with it
whatever.
being there, I just wanna know what it involved.
Right.
And the question is, if, for instance, if it was mostly going to bronze medallions, then are there $1,000 worth of bronze medallions every year? I'm just curious about what it
Yeah.
is, not doubting that it
Right.
has a purpose and reason to be there.
Yeah.
And also, to whom is that? Who either spends that, gets it, exercises control over that expense? If we could get that information, Todd, that would help me better understand.
So I would assume Dick Cullen and.
I think it's the veteran.
Probably Dick, but if Dick could give us either directly or indirectly, just.
I know this goes back to 15, I recollect that there was a point where it was inadequately funded with the wars and various parts of the world,
Yeah.
although it's not reflected here, it might have been before that.
Don't know. I don't know everything.
We thought you did.
No.
Next,
Okay. Covers all my questions in the whole packet.
are we okay on veterans? Want to go from veterans to veterans? Anybody have any questions on veterans related expenses? Looks like it's in guideline.
Animal inspector, I think guidelines. I'll note that, I did, for the past couple of years, we've been assuming a 2% increase in some of the stipends, and this year we didn't recommend that. There's nothing that requires that we do it every year, but I thought that given all of the concern, expressed that this would be a year that we would not, add the 2% in there, just a small amount, but I just wanted to recognize that we had been doing it for a couple of years because we wanted to be sure that we were, keeping up and providing some equity with relation to those stipends. But after 2 years, I felt that I feel comfortable not, level funding those for this year.
We have the historical commission, which appears to be in guidelines. Any questions, comments about the historical commission? I think that's the bottom of the pile.
Well, yeah, the last one is recycling expenses, I assume that we've got plenty of trash stickers, so we're not going out for them again?
Nope, not this year. Or trash details, we're fine on both of those supplies.
Anything else in open session? Dick? John?
Nope, I'm all set.
Nope.
I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purposes previously stated. Mr. Gant?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
I vote
Mr.
yes.
Gant?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer and myself. Thank you all for coming. Good night, thanks. You gonna turn off the camera, Dick, please?
Hey, Mark, I think I heard the same thing at the FinCom. I agree with you. If it's mandatory, it ought to be in the budget, so they roll it up, they don't make a mistake.
Yeah, I mean,
With a comment, maybe.
they certainly have the right to